Well, let's start with this, okay? Let's really contextualize this conversation. Because usually we go back and forth on news, but I sort of feel like you would be the guest I would have to give me an assessment of the convention
Yeah.
if you weren't here on Tuesdays, anyways. I would bring you in to say, let's start with this, Nomi. What is the purpose of a convention in conventional times?
A conventional convention.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been a big question, I think, for the older members of the News Corps and the media world. It just, the John Nicholses of the world and the Thomas Franks and other folks, Dan Rathers, especially Dan Rather, who was kicked out of a convention. I think that, the convention of like the 60s was more mechanical. And while there were a lot of things happening on the ground that were not democratic with a lowercase d, they still had like use. They still had to choose a nominee. They still had to choose a vice president. They still had to vote on a platform. And it wasn't...
Which remind people there was no primaries at the time.
Right, exactly. Good point. Yes.
So there was no primaries. So you actually maybe there's one or two here or there, but the way that the nominee was picked was actually at the convention.
Right. Exactly. So it was actually chosen at the convention. And of course, like the party establishment would try to do whatever they could to, and they did, to push one candidate over another. And the famous case would be Henry Wallace. But since like the neoliberal takeover of the party, it's become more and more theatrical, and it's especially, I'd say, in the last 15 to 20 years, the convention has become a huge opportunity for a group of moneymakers in the party to throw parties, get contracts, have fun, rub elbows, go to Thomas Frank last night said that, the Democratic Party became essentially like what the Republican Party, like their conventions are really fun because they serve lobster and Maker's Mark. And the Democratic Convention basically has become a little bit of that too. 2016, what was so interesting, and I know your audience and my audience understands this, but I'm still surprised by how many people who watched the convention in 2016 had no sense of what was actually happening in that room. And that just proves how much it was theatrics. There was an uprising happening in the room because just about half of the delegates were Bernie Sanders delegates. Hillary Clinton did not receive the number she needed to hit in terms of the nomination, clinching the nomination of pledged delegates. Those are earned delegates, not super delegates,
right,
to win the nomination. And so as a result, Bernie had extraordinary leverage going into that convention to put forward policies that he wanted on the platform, rules changes, and essentially he said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. There's a lot of mechanics behind the scenes that happened, but I'm not going to do that. And people were upset. And people who had raised money and campaigned to get on the ballot and were sharing hotel rooms went to that convention, working people, and they were brushed up against what I think you, Sam, and I would probably usually see at conventions, which is a bunch of guys in suits that are the donor class and the operative class. And it was not a pretty sight seeing these two forces up against each other. And the staff of the DNC is very skilled in controlling the optics. And those conversations, I don't think people would have them prior to 2016. But what it did, 2016 opened up a space where people could talk about, well, who's really running the conventions, who's really running the DNC, and what are we all props? As Dr. Jim Zogby, who's a longtime DNC member, has said, he sees the DNC, it's supposed to be the life of the party, like not the life of the party, but the living, the DNC's platform and rules of the living document of the party, and the people of the DNC are supposed to be the soul, and that has been erased. And I think a lot of that has happened under, really since Bill Clinton, when he turned the Democratic National Committee and the conventions into an opportunity for his cronies to make money, and that means contracts. I mean, what does that mean specifically? Right. It's like, okay, your organization throws a party. Your organization's a sponsor of the DNC. Perfect example. In 2016, Uber was one of the major sponsors of the convention.
Yes.
David Plouffe.
To the point where if you took a taxi to the DNC, you had to be dropped off literally like maybe a half a mile, a quarter mile away from the door.
Yeah.
But if you took an Uber, you would get right up to the door.
And they had like this spa tent.
I just refused to do the Uber thing. Yes. Oh, there was a spa tent. Yeah. Well, I stole some water from there, so I don't care about that.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yes.
but it is ridiculous. They have these tents, they'll have different media companies put on these ridiculous events. I remember in 2012 in Charlotte, it was so hot. Huffington Post had like a spa. Speaking of spas, they had like the nap rooms, and you could go do yoga classes and swing classes, and there was an organic juice bar, and and it was all free. And I mean, this is.
It's sort of like there's a quality of. I mean, from my perspective, there's a quality of these conventions that are like Sundance Film Festival, sort of like type of thing where, and it's not as explicit as like vendors meeting up with this and that, and it's just the nature of the people that are there. The other side of that though is that like it gives an opportunity for people who have basically been organizing online, who aren't necessarily the posh set, as it were, to connect and develop strategies and whatnot. The big question up until 2016 was a little bit that this question seemed submerged, but prior to that, for decades, I can just remember every year the question would be why the news coverage would be like, why are we covering this?
Yeah.
Why this is just a big ad for them.
Yes.
And so this time around, there was none of the like Uber's got a tent and hey, come on in here, use our product. This is a good product that we're going to sell your campaigns, or this is like, come and have the lobster. Let me tell you about why we need to have more fracking here, or something like that. I mean, none of that's going on.
Yeah.
So it is, and it's interesting because I want to get your take on this, but my sense is like there's not an expectation by the people who put on. Let's look at specifically this convention, right? I mean, this is just it exists. It's all virtual. Nobody was in the same room practically, and my sense is that the people who put this on, the Biden team, the DNC. They don't have an expectation that people are going to watch this, that the first order purpose of this is the news coverage the next day, right? That it's like, we're going to put this on. We know because we're political operatives, like any event that we do, it's all about like, what are the 3 or 4 headlines that are going to come out of this?
Right.
And because I watched this thing and I'm like, oh my God, John Kasich. Oh my God, Meg Whitman. Oh my God, Christy Todd Whitman. Oh my God, Susan Molinari.
Oh my God, nobody even knows who she is.
Nobody knows who she is. And they were on and it turns out they're on for like 60 seconds, maybe 15 seconds each. It's more like just like, hey, just here to, I'm, please invite me to your parties. I'm no longer excommunicado or whatever, and I have to say that on those very narrow terms, I think that they succeeded. And here's my argument as to why they succeeded. You can see Fox News had John Kasich, former Republican, says he's not going to vote. He can't vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
I don't know that that's going to convince anybody to vote but in terms of like when they sat down and planned it out, their plan was like, we just want a couple headlines, Republicans abandoning Trump.
Yeah.
And then, they had Michelle Obama. She got rave reviews. Look, it's all, let me just be clear on this. The entire convention, except for Bernie's speech, I guess, was all about Joe Biden's a nice guy and you can trust him. And it's all just sort of like, it's about empathy. It was all fluff. But this convention by their design, I don't know that I would do it this way. By their design was like, we just need this to permeate the media veil and reach low information voters who are going to vote based upon like, yeah, I don't like Trump's tweets and Joe seems like a good guy. Whatever. Bling. And that's it. Right. Now, I don't know that there's that many voters out there like this.
That's my theory on this too, and we'll talk about it on my show at 3:00. The bet right now, and the bet, let's just be clear, it's like they have two roads they can take. They can take the road of, with working people really leaning in on like let's have, Dimmenstein on from the postal workers on stage. Let's have like Sarah Nelson, who actually like outmaneuvered Trump. Like those are the types of people that if you put them on stage, it would really excite working people who were depressed in 2016, meaning depressed meaning they didn't turn out at the levels that they needed to. But instead, there's the other path that they're taking, which is let's keep our donors happy, let's keep our neoliberal philosophy, and maybe we can win a few more voters that have left the Republican Party. What would be these sort of milquetoast white middle class, upper middle class voters that I think Hillary already tried to win over, but maybe they think Joe Biden has more of a shot at doing so. I don't know that. I think it's a huge risk. And anytime excitement is down, Democrats should be leaning into how do we excite working people. And I don't know. I've been reading a lot of.
But let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm doing a little devil's advocate here,
sure.
Okay? Because I certainly would have been far more interested to see
you're a liberal,
and Sarah Nelson and AOC having more time and a whole host of people. Like I think Rebecca Tracey had a good article that basically said like this is a Democratic Party that was either completely unaware of what its future is,
right,
or in denial, or doesn't think it's important to highlight that. Now, personally for me, but I mean, are people going to watch? Are people who are even somewhat jaded about politics or just not caring about politics, are they going to watch that thing no matter what? Or are you saying that like the next day there would be articles that would say like Democrats push unions or something like that? I mean, I am a little bit skeptical that this is, I don't know that it has any impact, but it certainly did for sure, like make progressives feel like these a-holes don't care about us.
Right.
I'm still going to vote for Joe Biden because you know what? There's a lot of people who don't care about me, and I still don't want Donald Trump to be president.
Right.
But I don't know that there's material impact can come out of this one way or another in terms of like getting people to vote. But nobody's going to watch. Nobody's going to sit down and watch. Not many people are going to watch this thing, are they?
I mean, I think at the way it's designed right now, no. But if they had a great lineup, possibly. If they gave AOC more than 60 seconds, if they didn't, what I loved is that Bernie was supposed to open, from what I understand, and then he didn't, and he was the only person who went live. Did you know that too?
Was he the only person who went live?
Yeah, I don't know if he negotiated that or if they did, but if he negotiated, it was brilliant. I mean, he could have really messed with them a little bit.
I got the sense Clyburn went live too, actually.
Oh, Clyburn went live too.
I don't know. They did two takes with him at the beginning where he started.
Oh, yeah, he did the thing. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I think, obviously, if they had a lineup that spoke to most traditional Democratic voters, the actual base of the party, I'm not just talking about progressives. I'm talking about people who, could have voted for Biden instead of Trump if they had actually leaned into the values that Donald Trump campaigned on that Hillary Clinton abandoned. I think their bet is the same bet as 2016. And they're also betting on the fact that, mail-in voting and anti-Trump sentiment is going to shift the election enough that they don't have to lean into supporting working people. I mean, it was so boring. It was so boring and so weird. Like,
well, but it's going to be weird. I mean, it's a weird
No,
thing.
It was weird. it was weird. Like
you know what?
It was an
I'll tell you
80s
something.
infomercial.
Let me tell you something. Here's my prediction. If the Republican convention came before the Democratic one, you'd be like, wow, that was pretty normal. Because I have a feeling the Republican convention, you want to talk about weird. I think the Republican convention is,
We expect that. We expect cowboy hat sheriff.
I just think that like doing a convention as, like a TV show like they did, I think I didn't like the content, but the format I thought was like, okay. I thought like,
It's because you're old, Sam. Come on.
But I mean, what's the other option? No, but I'm serious. Like, I mean, I believe me, I watched, I was like, this is boring. I was like, first of all, I don't know who Eva Longoria is. I had to look that up. I didn't know.
You don't know who Eva Longoria is?
No, I was like, where'd they get this infomercial person? I had no idea who she was.
Well, I was in the room with somebody who's under 15, and she thought it was Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, I was just like, wow, this the whole thing was strange. But
how did you not know who she was? She was like she's always at Democratic things. She's at every convention. She's a big Obama person. She founded Latino Victory Fund.
Was
she's
she
their
on,
favorite
Modern
celebrity.
Family?
No, she was on Desperate Housewives like 15 years ago.
No idea.
But she's at all these events. She's a big, how they like America Ferrera. They have their go-to DNC celebrities that they work with.
I don't know who America Ferrera is either. I don't know any of these people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But let's play this clip first. Like, you want to talk about bizarre. In a million years.
Yeah.
I'm like, where is the Venn diagram between the people? This is clip number 15. The Venn diagram between the people who are going to be swayed because they see John Kasich, Susan Molinari, Christine Todd Whitman, and Meg Whitman, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna vote for the Democrats now," and so then they're like, "I'm gonna watch the rest of this whole thing," and then this comes on at the end.
Oh, I loved it. It was the best. Good night. I love this.
This is completely insane.
No, but it's beautiful. I think they were trolling the DNC. I think Billy Porter was like, "You want to go in? Let's do it."
I just think this is like what? Like what? The video production on this is just like is literally like something that you would expect. Like, oh yeah, no, I did this for my. I take a 4th grade media class, and put the music down so we don't get dinged on this. But it's like I mean I like the song. It's the old Crosby, Stills and Nash song, and I don't know this guy Porter. I'm not familiar with his work, but I'm just looking at these, like, the green screen doesn't look terribly sophisticated. They're just dropping these guys in.
It's weird with like BLM protesters behind him a little bit.
It's a way of placing the current day generation's protests within a broader context of protests.
No, this is that video summarizes what the DNC is. They're like the Hamilton Democrats, the old like hippies who think they're not capitalists now, and like a bunch of technocrats who really don't know how to do anything except collect checks and create ads that suck. Like, that is the DNC right there.
Well, I mean, like, where they're like, oh, well, they loved Kasich, they love Molinari. Now they're gonna love this thing that looks like it was done by Tim and Eric. I mean, well, I don't get it.
I think it's this is for like the real heads out there. This is for like, you stuck around till the end of the show. You're getting a little treat. You had your medicine.
The real DNC heads.
Yeah, you'll be here with us till the end.
Here is where I think where they succeeded on their terms. Okay. Again, I want to just say, like, this is the terms of the people putting this on. And frankly, I am increasingly of the opinion that what we're looking at in terms of the Democratic Party that exhibited itself last night, we're looking at a dinosaur. And the fact is, a dinosaur's tail wags for like 20 minutes after its head been lopped off. I don't know
Really?
that for a fact if that's the
Wait, is this
dynamic.
you're saying the DNC is the dinosaur, or Joe Biden's the dinosaur?
I'm saying everything that we saw last night
Yeah.
looked to me like a party that was stuck in an era that no longer exists. And they just aren't aware of it, or maybe they are, and they're just holding on white knuckled. But this
I
is
think that's it.
this is something that time will correct. And I think it's unfortunate they look like they're completely unaware of of where their future is, and they're just trying to pull it out, I guess. But here's a clip of Michelle Obama. She got the biggest, I think, attention of the night, and we'll play a clip of Michelle Obama, and then we'll play a clip of Fox News, which suggests to me that, as far on their own terms, the people who put this together last night must feel it's a success. I don't know if it is, but here's Michelle Obama.
The cold, hard truth. So let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is.
Now, that's the way that you talk about, on some level, the way you talk about you're almost like your romantic partner. Like that is the kind of talk that you have with yourself or your therapist or your friend about why you're getting divorced. And I just thought that was sort of an interesting way of putting it. Like, it's not just that he's incompetent. It's that, like, you're not going to change him.
Right.
and she's not talking to people who, she's not talking to Democrats there, right? She's talking to people on the fence on some level, because everybody else is going to vote against him. Like, she's not trying to rally people to support Biden. She's just saying that, like, look, we got to do better than this, and anything's going to be better than this. And now there's other parts where she's talking about Biden, but look at this Fox News response to it. Now, granted, it is it's not Sean Hannity, but it's still Fox News.
Over the course of the night, the first virtual convention of our history, I think they would say that Michelle Obama stuck the landing.
Chris Wallace, your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Dana. You know, it's interesting. Michelle Obama, as she said, doesn't like politics. And she said that this speech was her main contribution to the Biden campaign. It was a heck of a contribution. She really flayed, sliced and diced Donald Trump, talking about the chaos and confusion and lack of empathy, especially coming from this president and from this White House. Spoke more about the deficits of Donald Trump than the pluses of Joe Biden, but did talk about, especially, not so much policies, but especially his empathy, what he's been through, and his care for average Americans. She said we have to vote.
I mean, if you're the DNC, you're and you put that convention on, you're taking that clip and you're sending it around and trying to get contracts for future, like that literally, I would imagine, is in their minds, again, I think that is mission accomplished, right? I mean, now there may be other nights of the convention where it's like, for people like us, like, get us psyched to go out and work. And usually you would do that like later in the convention, I guess, because there was not a lot in that, it seems to me, to inspire people to go out and, like a vision of what could be. It really was just like, let's just get away from this as much as we can.
She's the mediator. I think, it was telling that the election coverage people at Fox News tend to be the people who don't like Trump. I know a lot of our audience doesn't watch Fox News, but that's generally who, used to be what they called the news side. So Chris Wallace does not like Trump. Dana Perino does not like Trump. I don't know who else was on that panel. They're there to cover like the polls. Very rarely do you see like the Hannitys come in when it comes down to like assessing the numbers and the facts and whatever little reputation Fox has. But I think that the Biden campaign knows that, and they also know the same thing with MSNBC. And you think back 2-3 years ago when MSNBC started putting on Republicans, Nicole Wallace, Rick Wilson, all these different Republicans who come on now.
Bill Kristol.
Rubin, exactly, that have taken your spot, Sam. No, I mean, but that's the reality. It's like they basically, I think this has been a long 3-year campaign to win over defected Trump supporters into the Democratic Party so that they don't have to, again, lean into working people. And so knowing that, like, say, 65% of those who make under $50,000 that would be traditional Democratic voters will turn out. But it won't be 100%, but it's okay because we'll win back the rest.
We'll see. I mean, I agree with you. Like, I don't think this is the proper strategy, but on their own terms, I think they did well. And I should also say that was not Crosby, Stills, and Nash. It was Buffalo Springfield.
That was Buffalo Springfield.
I know.
I didn't want to correct you on that.
I apologize. No, you should.
But it was Stephen Stills from Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Correct. Yeah. He had a couple of. He also did the super sessions with Al Cooper and Mike.
Cooper and Mike Bloomberg.
Yeah, Bloomfield.
No, it was actually Mike Bloomberg. That's a little known fact. He was a great guitar player. No, I'm kidding.
That is actually a great album too. Those super sessions.
Manassas too is a great one. That's a Stephen Stills solo record. I would recommend.
I should also just say that in terms of MSNBC, their move to Republicans was really more about them wanting to be more Republican. I mean, that was Andy Lack was a Republican.
But like him taking over wasn't some sort of. I mean, why would MSNBC choose a former Republican to run?
Well, it's not MSNBC. They don't choose. There's no MSN. Why would NBC do it? Because NBC Comcast and I mean, I actually think that they don't even. I mean, I think like as long as they feel. I know for a fact that back in the day, in the early aughts, when MSNBC was right wing, where Joe Scarborough had a primetime show with Tucker Carlson, Pat Buchanan, and Frank Luntz worked there.
I forgot
that Bob Wright from General Electric, is that his name? Bob Wright? Because GE owned the majority of that network at that time.
And GE was run by, what's his name, who just died, Trump supporter, very famous.
Was it not Bob Wright?
No, billionaire. He just died. He's bald.
I can't remember.
Someone Google that.
No, it's not. No, that was Viacom. It's not that guy.
No.
But whatever. He would, when he would hear anti-war stuff, he would call down and say, that can't happen. Because General Electric was the biggest, one of the biggest arms dealers, and then, but I think beyond that, Comcast just likes to lay low. They just don't want too much controversy, and I don't think that they really cared as long as it's within certain parameters, right? Whether it was like leaning Republican or leaning Democrat, and Andy Lack came in and he's a Republican. He's just like, we're going to lean Republican, and if it weren't for Donald Trump, I think that's what they would have done. It's just that they basically got jammed. I mean, they were trying to get away from their entire lineup. You remember when O'Donnell, there was like that report, so they firing O'Donnell. Mm-hmm. They fired like all that. That was, if they had their way, the whole thing. It was Jack Welch. Yes, Jack Welch, thank you. Yeah. If they had their way, then it would all have been sort of like center right as opposed to center left.
So the shift really just happened when Bush's approval during the war dropped so low, and then it went straight to, it was just the Obama years. That's literally the only time MSNBC has ever been progressive. I can't believe.
Yeah. It was a fluke. Keith Olbermann just started basically started imposing some type of like, left-wing ideology in 2005. I don't even call it a left-wing ideology. He was anti-Trump. He was anti-Bush. And that just worked in terms of ratings. And so they just went in that direction. And it wasn't, and I think also it's not just a question of ratings in that dynamic. It's like Fox Business. Fox Business has 7,000 people who watch it, but they all drive Bentleys. And so you can sell a lot of stuff to them. And in this instance, it was just the one place, the TV outlet that liberals could go, and so you had them all there, and you could sell them to them. I mean, so I think that once you set it up, it's almost like one of those it's like one of those wind-up toys. You set it up and you're aiming it in a direction. You don't have to police it once it starts going because it's already on a track. And every now and then they shift it and they shift the track and where it's going. And I think it's probably going to shift again because they're finding like this works for us. So, but let's go to the phone.